as we go ahead. So welcome to Podium Dynamics Academy, Nigeria's leading public speaking school. My name is George Asian, and I'm delighted to be with you guys. I want to appreciate Grace Jacob Umana and every other person who has taken our time to join us in this class. So we're going to start the introductory part of this class. We'll be talking about influence, we'll be talking about persuasion. How can you become a lot more persuasive as a communicator? And like I often say, if you take out the persuasion element from communication, communication is not communication. So what truly makes communication what it is the persuasion element embedded in it. So we must understand the mechanics and the dynamics of communication. I'd like you to write down thoughts. Very shortly, I'll take us to our slides where I will show you a few things. When we began classes this week, we intended to do 4 days back to back. On the first day, we discussed, if I can remember, speech preparation methodology, or what I would rather call the logos of public speaking, putting together your content. And this is very instructive. You are a speaker, you need to learn how to put together your content. If you're just joining us, I'd like you to mute your sound so that we don't get interruptions. Maybe I should just do that generally for everyone so that we don't get those interruptions. Okay, all right. So we started talking about speech preparation methodology, and unfortunately we didn't record it, but we have previous recordings in our YouTube channel, which I can share with you guys so you can watch and learn how to put together speeches that will enable you to become more effective. And then we went on to talk about the next day. We discussed, if I can remember, the business of public speaking, the microphone business, how you can literally earn from speaking. We identified the different kinds of speakers, and we did a part 1 of that series because it has obviously going to be part 2 where we'll see practical ways to improve ourselves as speakers. And then we started to identify different kinds of speakers, the facilitator, the keynote speaker, the MC, and how they operate. And I'm sure we did record that video, and I'm sure it's on our YouTube. We can give it to you. All right. The next thing that we did that is also very important is that we okay, the third day we now discuss something very vital, which we call transformational vocabulary. Now, transformational vocabulary is a very, very interesting topic which we handled at length and we got inspired. So today, being the 4th session, we're looking at a course in our 18-course program. Our 18-course program, we're looking at one of those courses, persuasion. Of course, we're going to have to take from 1, 2, 3 sessions of it because we cannot exhaust everything in one day. So if you're ready to go, I'm going to take you right into the topic, into our session, and we'll get started almost immediately. Welcome, everyone. Let's jump straight into my screen, and I'm going to show you that stuff I'm talking about shortly. Persuasion. Let's understand what persuasion is. What persuasion is. Why is it important that you take this program? Why is it so important that you take this program? We're looking at persuasion, and we'll run 3 sessions. Let's see. We're going to be talking basically on how you can influence people to your way of thinking. That's the goal of speaking. Influencing people to your way of thinking. That will make you a communicator. That will make you an influencer. Influencing people to your way of thinking. Whether you're in a podium, or whether you're having a one-on-one interaction, whether you're having an interview session, whether you're a guest artist in a function, how do you influence people to your way of concept? So let's define what itself. We didn't get that. Influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of
So there's no seven. There's no three.
Hello, Director. I guess we have lost you. The audio is off completely. Thank you. Boy. Can you hear me now? Let me know if you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
All right. Yes, sorry about that.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to go back to those things I was sharing and see how we can continue our conversation. All right. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So if you didn't get that, I was saying that influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character development and behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself. And we said that part of one of the, instead of saying influence, you can also use the word persuasion in public speaking. And we said that persuasion is simply the process, is a process of getting people to do things. So you underline the word process. Persuasion is a process, is a process. So it doesn't happen. It's not a destination. Say it's a journey. So a person can be persuaded over time. A person is being persuaded. So persuasion is in degrees. Is where you get a person to say many yes until you get the ultimate yes. When you get a person to say many no's until you get the ultimate no. When the audience is nodding their head and you are affirming them over the session of your time, and they eventually agree, they eventually buy in to whatever you're saying. So persuasion is a process of getting people to do things. Now, it could be influencing people, it could be forcing them or coercing them, and it could easily be manipulating them. There are people who are masters of the art, masters of the game of manipulating people. And I'm sure you're aware of them. They have mastered this art of manipulating people. And that's really not our goal. And the word persuasion, the nominative word is persuaso. Persuaso is Latin in origin, or what we call persuasionem. Persuasionem. Sorry, that's not my language. I'm just saying this. But the etymology of the word, persuaso, is divided into two. Pa means thoroughly or strongly. Suaso means sweet and pleasant. So persuaso means thoroughly or strongly sweet and pleasant. That is the roots, the origin of the word persuasion. So persuasion should be thoroughly, it should be strongly, it should be sweet, and it should be pleasant. There are other synonyms of persuasion, or to be persuaded or to persuade. It means to cajole. Of course, you know that term is manipulative. It means to exhort. So when you exhort a person, maybe you're in church and you're exhorting, you're giving a charge, or you're sharing a testimony of faith, you are subtly persuading them. It means to get, it means to incline towards somebody or to be inclined towards. And I like the word influence. Influence seems to actually encapsulate what persuasion in our context means. That is, as leaders, we need to understand that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. It is influence that leads to affluence. We are first influential before we become affluential. It means to prompt a person, it means to satisfy, it means to urge. So these are the synonyms. But you see, there are three parts of persuasion. Now, the picture you have here is a picture of the man called Aristotle. Aristotle is a very interesting person, and I'm sure I spoke about him when we discussed transformational vocabulary. I said that he was the philosopher, the tutor of the man called Alexander the Great. The father of Alexander was King Philip, the one-eyed king of Macedonia. He appointed Aristotle to train his son in the art of science, the art of communication, and to literally understand stuff. You know, in those days, kings used to have teachers and tutors that trained nobles to become better etiquette. And Aristotle was vast in philosophy, in medicine, in botany, even in some of the democratic ideas we have came from him. In fact, in that class on transformational vocabulary, we quoted some things about him. He said, in making a speech, one must be conversant with the means of persuasion, the language of persuasion, and the various parts of speech. I'm sure if you attended that class, you remember we said something of that nature. But Aristotle actually said that when it comes to persuasion, there are three parts of persuasion, and it follows this particular order. He said the first thing is ethos. If you're going to persuade anybody, you must understand this sequence of persuasion. The first thing is ethos, the second thing is pathos, and the third thing is logos. What does ethos mean? Ethos is where you have the word ethics, etiquette. Is, you know, when you talk about integrity, character, credibility, you know, character, credibility, integrity, that's related to ethos. So people will listen to you as a speaker if you have the ethos. If you're talking about relationship, you must have some level of credibility. You must either be married or have some large number of experience, or you must be considered as an expert. You must either be a counselor, a marriage counselor, even if you're not married, but you have some level of experience, because the ethos will enable you to influence people. Credibility facilitates persuasion. When there's no ethos, all right? So the challenge that the speaker has is that the audience, they are always evaluating the speaker. They want to find out why they should be listening to you. So the ethos helps you solve the problem. Ethos also means the brand. Ethos means the reputation that you come with. So the reputation that you come with on stage will affect people's perception of you. So you've got to be careful. And most MCs, when they invite you on stage, they don't do a fantastic job. They don't do justice to your ethos, so that the people don't really see you as much as they should see you in order to buy into your philosophy. So your job as a speaker is to establish your ethos, to establish your credibility, if that has not been done sufficiently. So the ethos of the sequence of persuasion is very important. So if you see that there is no persuasion, it's because there's a lacuna, there's a challenge with the ethos, the credibility, the character, you know, the perceived competence of that person, you know, as it relates to the subject matter or as it relates to the topic. So ethos. The next thing that is quite important in the persuasion sequence, as according to Aristotle, is pathos. And pathos in French is passion, or passion in English language. Passion, enthusiasm, you know, excitement, confidence, you know, vitality, energy. The energy, the delivery, the vocal variety, pathos. You've got to have passion, because it is this passion that persuades. It is this confidence that convinces. If a speaker does not have, aside a tone, does not have passion, people will not be excited. It is the pathos that electrifies the environment. It's the pathos. Sometimes people buy into the pathos. Now, if you're suffering from insufficient ethos, maybe you don't have enough credibility. With enough pathos, you can compensate for your lack in ethos. Because if you have enough passion and conviction about what you're talking about, people may just catch the fire. So pathos is the second part of persuasion. And then the third part, and this is very important, is the logos. The logos is the content. The logos is the words, the things that you share. As important as patosis and asetosis, if you don't have the logic, if you don't have the reasoning, if you don't have the content, the subject, there's going to be a challenge, and that challenge will be that there will be no effective communication. At the end of the day, people are looking for depth. So Aristotle says that three parts of persuasion is that you need to have a ethos, pathos, and logos. I hope that is clear. Now, there are kinds of persuasion. The kinds of persuasion we have, we already said that persuaso meaning thorough sweetness or pleasantness. It should be, at the end of the day, real persuasion should be motivational. But we have three kinds of persuasion. And the first one is that there's a persuasion that is manipulative. There have been people in history that have been very massively manipulative, even in the religious circle, where they've used religion being a strong ethos. They've used the passion in religion, and they've used also the logos in religion to get people, to manipulate people, and to keep them in bondage. So persuasion can be manipulative. It can also be forceful, where you have dictators and regimes that are coercive, forcing people, when you use threats, when you use punishment. It's a form of persuasion. But our goal ultimately is that persuasion should be motivational. That's why we're here, to learn ideas, to learn strategies, to learn strategies that will help us to motivate our world, to inspire our world into greatness, into achieving the things that we desire for them to achieve, and even to motivate ourselves. Because you see, persuasion begins with you. And I have to say this as an additional, that persuasion begins with you. If you're not persuaded about a matter, you can't persuade others. So you need to find persuasion. And by that, I mean, you need to find inner passion, you need to find purpose before you can effectively persuade people. I hope you know that. Because the word motivation means is divided into two, motives and action. And motive means strong reason, strong reason, action, strong reason to take action, strong reason to take action that has success consequences. And that's what persuasion should be all about. So now let me introduce you to a certain man called Dr. Robert Cialdini. Dr. Robert Cialdini is a professor in a top leading university in America. He authored the book, The Psychology of Persuasion, and I encourage you to Google his name up and you can read his work on persuasion. He will really guide you. He has a very powerful philosophy on persuasion, that 6 principles of persuasion that I'm going to be sharing with you shortly, that you can read in his book, The Psychology of Persuasion, that expand and help you to know how to become a better persuader. Now, persuasion cuts across a large spectrum. You see persuasion in advertising, you see persuasion in economics, on sales, you see persuasion in parenting, you see persuasion in leadership, you see persuasion in public speaking, you see persuasion in love and romance, you see persuasion in finance, you see persuasion in politics, in power, persuasion is there. And the ideas that Robert Cialdini put together many years ago, put in a book, Psychology of Persuasion, the principles and psychology of persuasion are fantastic ideas. Let us quickly look at them. They basically run down to 6 things. It says that if you want to persuade people, let's focus on 66 things, and you will get people tend to be persuaded when these 6 things are in place. Any of the 6 things. All of them or any of them. All of them, few of them, or any of them. If you see persuasion, any of these 6 things are particularly involved. We'll start off with reciprocity. What does reciprocity mean? Or reciprocity? It means give and take dynamic. Every time you want to get people to do something, you give to them. If you give, people are obligated to return the favor. Whenever you give, people are obligated to return the favor. In the digital marketing world, we see that happen a lot. When people want to receive people's emails so that they can send them follow-up emails and then eventually market them, they will give a free gift, or they'll give a free gift. And when they give that free gift or that free checklist, people have this tendency to want to easily give their emails so they can receive, or people have this obligation to return back the favor in some kind. So, it's a give and take dynamic is a very powerful way to persuade people. When you want to sometimes we do free lectures so that we can get people to pay for higher courses. So that is a very powerful way to persuade. You give first to receive. As a matter of fact, you give a free thing to receive higher price. And if that thing is considered valuable, they will respond in kind and in cash. Another principle of persuasion that Robert Cialdini also talked about is scarcity. Scarcity has a way of making a product or a service or a subject matter, the scarcity of it become more valuable, people become more interested. You can use scarcity in your copywriting, you can use scarcity in your pitch, you can use scarcity in your presentation to get people to desire stuff. I've gone to speak at an event before, and in that event, it was a free lecture, and I was teaching. I gave them so much value in that presentation. And then when I was done, I had some books, I had some audio materials I wanted to sell. And I said to them in that meeting, I have 50 audios. We were quite crowded. We had over 1,000. I have just 50 audios on this topic, 50 audios. I have about 150 products there, and they're going for 500 now. And since we have a large number here, and this is so exciting, we have very limited offer. Now you have to rush down right now and get those copies. We have very limited offer. Okay, and today it is 500 now. Tomorrow, or one next you see, it's going to be 1,000, 1,500 now. That approach in communication, that sense of scarcity, that we have only 50 copies, only 150 copies of the product of this young man, and that today it is 500 naira, tomorrow it's 1,500 naira, caused people to rush out. Before I got out, the whole product, everything was sold, and I made my money. So you can use scarcity in sales, you can use scarcity in your presentation to get people to make a buying decision, to make a commitment. So it's a strategy and it's a principle of persuasion. Like I said, you can use any of them, or you can use more than one of them, or you can use all of them in your presentation, in your lecture, in your writing to persuade people. The next thing that is very, very strongly persuasive and is a principle of persuasion is authority. We already hinted that when we discussed the efficacy or the importance of ethos, that is, a person is accepted because he's an authority. A person is followed because of authority. So you want to find a way to establish your credibility or establish your authority. When you're a person of power, you have a position of influence. So a person of power has a position of influence in people. So you want to stand in that strategic position in that regard, to be perceived in that light, and then you can make people to follow you. So authority is another fantastic way to get people to buy into you. And other times you can leverage on other people's authority by quoting others. When you quote authoritative sources, when you quote individuals that are authoritative in the subject matter, you're also leveraging on the concept or the principles of persuasion. So use, this authority said, because this authority said so, it does not become an accepted philosophy. So you use authority. That's why I say quotes are important in your presentation. You cannot be all in all. You don't do a presentation as all in all. You have to have a reference with someone higher, someone that's considered a subject matter master in that discourse. Then another thing that is very powerful and very, very powerful is the sense that you are committed and consistent. Just because a person is committed and consistent on any project, on any matter, that is persuasive enough. So people follow consistent people. People follow men that are committed. What do I mean by this? The word commitment is a very strong word, and we don't use it lightly. Oftentimes, there are people who come here, and all they are interested in is in public speaking. They're just interested in public speaking. But for you to stay in the realm of interest, it means that you don't understand the higher dimension of life, the higher dimension of greatness. The higher dimension of greatness is commitment. Commitment says that's why in the scriptures, in the 10th commandment, you have only 2 times the word commitment is used. You have, thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not commit murder. Okay, so when you commit murder, when you kill a person, you cannot bring the person back to life. You cannot reverse it. So commitment is an all-out word. You don't use it anyhow. When you commit, you're all out. You're going in and you're never going back. You're burning the bridges. So when people see men of commitment, and they are usually perceived as men of conviction, when people see people who are consistent on a particular project, on a particular discourse, on a particular philosophy, people follow them. So it is only men of conviction that attract followership, and they are very persuasive. So that is another principle of persuasion. Another principle of persuasion is consensus. When people agree, we call it the herd mentality. When people follow a particular route, chances are that more people will follow that route because people like a particular, or more people follow a particular route, are doing a particular, the chances are that other people will follow it. So if you're selling a product, for example, and you say that this person and that person and that person has done it, the chances of the prospect or the customer or the investor to follow the route of others, especially if they know those persons that have gone ahead to do those things, is very high. So people do things because others have done it. So you use that. You always have to leverage on testimonials. That's why as a speaker, you do a lot of testimonials. You share testimonies of people who have tried your product, who have accepted your philosophy, adopted your philosophy, and have gotten results. So you share testimonies, you share stories. Because people have heard that others have done it, they are more likely going to do it. So the principle of consensus is a very powerful principle in persuasion. The last principle, according to Dr. Robert Cialdini, is liking. People buy and people patronize those that they like and they trust and they know. If people like you, if people know you and if people can trust you, they'll buy from you. So you want to work on your likability. You want to get people to trust you. You want to get people to like you. And that is what you have to do. You've got to find a way to get a strong connection with people before they can buy from you. So any of these principles will work for your business, will work for you as a speaker. You understand reciprocity, you understand scarcity, you understand the impact and the importance of an imperative of authority, you understand the impact of commitment and consistency, you understand consensus, and you understand liking. You can go back and read, more about this when you go and read more about Robert Cialdini's thing. But let us quickly read these things. Reciprocity says we feel obligated to return favors to people who have done favors for us in the past. Scarcity, we value scarce information and commodities more than things that are in abundance. Authority, we believe what is trustworthy and credibility experts say. Commitment, we are most likely to do what is consistent with what we have done in the past. All right, that's also another dimension to it. What we've done in the past, we're more likely to do it again. Consensus, we trust the power of the crowd and like to be associated with popular things. That's consensus. Likability, we say yes to people that we like, similarity, compliments, and cooperative effort. So go and study Robert Cialdini's work, and you can see how it goes. Now, I want to introduce you to a subject matter called emotional agenda. Now, as you begin to become a better speaker, a better communicator, a better persuader, you must understand the concept of emotional agenda. Humans are more emotionally driven than they are logical. If you're going to persuade men, aside these things we have shared, you need to understand the concept, the philosophy of people's emotional agenda. What is emotional agenda? People will eventually do what they want to do. So emotional agenda is simply what a person will do. That's actually corrective place. What a person will do in spite and despite the risks. So we have missed out do. What a person will do in spite and despite the risk. That is a person's emotional agenda. As you're listening to me, you have an emotional agenda. Number two, what a person will really want, what a person really wants to do. What a person really wants to do is his emotional agenda. The emotional agenda is our fears, our greed, our addiction, our love, our hate of an individual at any given moment. That is your emotional agenda. So your goal as a communicator is to identify people's emotional agenda. You can do it individually, you can do it at a corporate level. That's why we say audience analysis precedes audience engagement. Audience analysis comes before audience engagement. You do not engage an audience that you have not researched and analyzed. You want to analyze them to the extent that you have found out what their interest is, what their familiarity of the subject is, what they want to hear, what they need to hear, what is already influencing them, what their emotional agenda is. As a speaker, you need to understand these dynamics. Whether you're speaking to one person or to a group of people, people's emotional agenda is vital. And for those of you who have attended the WhatsApp class, we said that a person's emotional agenda is his move button. is mumu button, is hot button. That is his trigger button. The button that when you hold on to, you can either manipulate, coerce, or influence positively that person. So our goal is, how do we identify a person's emotional agenda? Or how do we identify a group's emotional agenda? What you can do in a person, you can do in a group. We're going to learn a few ways. The first thing you must understand, here are 3 specific ways people reveal their emotions. 3 specific ways. The first way people do that, whether it's an individual or a crowd, is their eyes. I've taught you this before. If you've joined my WhatsApp group or you've attended any of my online trainings on persuasion, I've taught this repeatedly, that the eyes is the mirror to the soul, it's the gateway to the soul. That if you want to know a person's soul, you want to know a person's emotion, the eyes can give you a clue. The eyes reveal our prejudice, the eyes reveals hatred, the eyes reveals pain, the eyes reveals everything. Eye contact is a major part of body language expression. Eye contact is a major part of body language. So you look at people's eyes, you consider their eyes, and then from their eyes you can decode, you can deduce their emotional agenda. People will reveal things. The eye is a surer barometer for measuring a person's emotion than his words. Before I hear what you say, I will see through your eyes. And from your eyes, I can decode what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and how best to approach you. I can determine how best to approach you through a person's eyes. So the eyes is to a man what the tail is to a dog. Now, if you want to know the emotional state of a dog, you simply have to look at the tail. That's why policemen cut off the tail of the dog. They cut off the tail of the dog so that you cannot easily predict the emotional direction of the dog. A person's emotional agenda determines his emotional direction. A person's emotional agenda determines his emotional direction, how he will behave. So we look at the eyes of people to determine a whole lot. And there's a body of knowledge where we teach extensively and intensively how to use eyes, how to work with the eyes. So the next specific way, of course, the FBI and the CIA, they use an eye detective machine to to work with criminals to determine whether they're lying or not. So the eyes plays a very major role. And there's a body of knowledge we call neuro-linguistic programming, where we teach you extensively how to use the eyes. I'm going to show you some things briefly as we begin to cover up. When we stop on this 3, tomorrow we'll continue our conversation about how to take this to the next level. All right, so body movements. When we say body movement, of course, that's another way you can look at your audience. So if you're speaking, you can look at the eye contact of the people and know whether they are getting you or not. You can look at their body movement and know whether they're getting you or not. You can listen to words of people, individuals, or feedback from them and know whether they are agreeing with you. And you can also use that to determine their emotions at the moment. So the eyes is a major role. And I don't want to teach this today. This is the teaching for this picture you see here is an eye movement of a normal right-handed person. A person who uses the right hand. So a left-handed person uses the reverse. So, but if you're doing a one-on-one session with anybody and you want to know a person's emotional agenda, or you want to determine his strategy, you can look at this picture. And this is actually NLP I'm teaching right now, but I'll just give it to you for those of you who might be interested. You can look at the person's direction of his eyes and know what decision or what emotional state he is at the moment. So the things you've noticed that you're seeing for the up directions, you have VC and VR. For the lower directions, you have K and AD. For the side, you have AC and AR. That is a person looking at you. So VC, don't worry, it's not confusing. VC simply means visual constructed. When a person wants to construct pictures or want to imagine things, wants to make up things, what happens is that he lifts his eyes up to the left side, right from your angle, but left from my direction, looking at you, facing you to the left. A normal right-handed person will lift his eyes up to the left. When you say something to the person and the person wants to conjure images, when a person is lying to you, when a person is trying to hide something from you, he will lift his eyes up to the left. VC is visual constructed. Now, at the other end is VR, and VR is visual recalled or visual remembrance. When a person is trying to remember something from way back, then when you say something to a person and the person is trying to remember something, his eyes goes up to the right, person facing you, up to the right. It's called visual recalled. Now, VC and VR is called the trans dimension, trans modality or trance. So when people are in trance, when you're speaking to an audience and they are in trance, VCVR, they're looking up, they're looking up. When I'm having a conversation with people and you're looking up, it means that they're in trance. And so you can take people into trance. And there's a way a trance is a slight vision, a short or long vision, because we have short trance and we have long trance. So there's a way you can talk to a person, the person goes in trance. And the thing about trance is that when you put a person into trance, you can throw in suggestions, you can throw in thoughts and words, you can throw in embedded commands in your phraseology, in your thought. That's why I said you should use a lot of transformational vocabulary. You can throw in suggestions that will get deep down into the soul of the person. Now, if you look at the lower part, that is, you have K and AD. K means kinesthetic or feelings. When a person is trying to process his feeling, he's depressed, he's sad, he's unhappy, or he's happy, or he's embarrassed, anything that has, or he hates, anything that has to do with emotions is usually at the lower left-hand side of a person looking at you. You can look at the person and the person will drop his eyes down to the lower side. If a person is talking to himself, AD stands for auditory dialogue. Auditory dialogues or auditory digital. Auditory dialogue means that conversation people have on their inside. AD stands for that. When the person is talking to himself, his eyes will go down. So you can be speaking to an audience and you have the sensory acuity to calibrate their emotional agenda by looking at them. Like I was speaking today to an audience, which I really captivated them for an hour. I was looking at them and looking at their eye movement. When their eyes was going up, I could see that they were in trance. When their eyes were going down, I know they were processing things in the emotional dimension, or they were talking to themselves. All right, so that is that. And so AC and AR. AC means auditory constructed. You can construct sounds, and also AR means you can construct. AR means auditory recall. You can remember sounds. So when a person looks high up, he's processing things visually. When he looks sideways, he's processing things auditorily, hearing. When a person looks downwards, he's processing things in the emotional realm or kinesthetic realm. Either he's talking to himself or he's processing. This is for a normal right-handed person. This all I just said is here, okay? Like constructed images, remembered images. Visualizing, construction of imagining, visually, when it's visually lying, when you're imagining things, all right, that's up. Visually remembering images, remembered images, that's up. Sideways, auditory constructing sound. Does it sound right? That's sideways. Auditory remembering sound, that's sideways. Kinesthetic, checking out his feelings, that's kinesthetic. Having an internal dialogue, this is straight head visualization. Eye positions are looking at another person. So I've explained this already, and I'm sure that if you attend our NLP training, we teach this. It's good to know it. In fact, through this thing, you can arrange, you can decode and write down a person sequence, and that is beyond the scope of it. But let me give you a tidbit. How do you put people into trance? One of the fastest ways to put people into trance as a speaker is to tell stories. And we'll discuss that tomorrow when we start talking about the power and the impact of storytelling in speaking. Whether you're doing one-on-one or you're doing a group session, you might have to learn how to be a good storyteller. Another way to put people into trance is to use idiomatic expressions. Another way to put people into trance is to quote people. Another way to put people into trance is to use metaphors. Flowery language, colorful language, because those colorful languages put people into trance. It assesses their visual dimension. So you see why that transformational vocabulary class was important, to understand why you need to pay attention to idioms, pay attention to metaphors, pay attention to figures of speeches, pay attention to your vocabulary, okay, because you're putting people in trance when you tell stories. When you're a good storyteller, people put into trance. That's one very powerful way to do that. So I'll discuss that more. And why do people into trance? People into trance so that their conscious defense can fall down and can have access to their subconscious. The conscious mind can, the defense, the wall that barricades you from assessing their mind, their real mind, their self, and getting them to take the kind of action you want them to take, has to fall down for you to reach out to them. As long as they keep evaluating, or they are critical, or they're analyzing, as long as their conscious, logical mind is up there, they will not buy into your philosophy or follow you. But once you can take that off through storytelling, through the rigmaroles of metaphors and all of that, you can now access their subconscious. We'll learn that later. So the next thing and the last two things we'll talk today, we'll continue this tomorrow, is body movement. People's body movement or people's physiology determines their psychology. Just a slight shift in a person's body movement can tell you a whole lot. Even a crowd, you can look at them. And we do a little exercise here, but I'll not read this to you. The body has a language you can understand and learn if we are observant. People's body posture speaks volume. A tired man has a posture, it shows in his stride. A tired audience yawns and shifts. When a man is ready to go, it will show not only in his attitude, but in his body movement. And so you want to be particular about people's body movement, whether you're interacting with them one-on-one or whether you are having a conversation in a meeting. And so we have these pictures we're showing here about postures and what posture says. You can read to learn to read people. Wear dark glasses when they stand in a particular way, or when they fold their hands. When a woman puts her hands in a kimbo, it means something. When a man puts her in his pocket and tilts his head or bob his head in a particular way, you need to understand this dimension. It's what you say that counts. It's what you don't say that counts. Because the truth is that people's body language is 55% of the influence you have on any audience will come from the body language. And 55% of the information or the feedback you get from an audience will be their body language. So reading people's body language is vital in persuasion. You need to understand this, and there's a body of knowledge, there's a course where we teach that extensively. So these are just a few virtual expressions: serious, anger, happiness, disappointment, surprise, sadness. I'm going to teach a course to you guys on body language. I've done it before, but I'll do it again one of these days. We'll look at how to observe people and how to get their true meaning. Like this exercise, if you're in the physical class, I teach this and I give you guys time to be able to determine the emotion. What you see in this man's facial expression, his gestures, facial gestures. What do you decode that he's trying to mean? Or he's not saying anything, but can you say something about the different looks, his facial looks? When is he sad? When is he angry? When is he serious? When is he lying? When is he desperate? When is he excited? When is he skeptical? When is he cynical? When is he sad? When is he confident? You can look at the various pictures in this slide and determine what kind, and by just practicing and understanding this, you can take that into real life and get it very right. All right, so okay, this is an example of body language in public speaking, a major part of speaking. Trust me, a major part of speaking. All right, so for you to be a very strong influencer as a speaker, look at what Dale Carnegie, powerful author, a smile will disarm any audience. Like I said, persuasion is in degrees. So a smile will disarm any audience. We look at face your audience as much as possible. Establish eye contact with them. Hold them 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Take deep breath, relax, and this helps your voice project. There's something called vocal projection or vocal variety. You want to take breath in, breathe and breathe out. We teach a course on vocal variety, and I will teach that shortly, where you can breathe in and breathe out, and you can project your voice better. Of course, your feet has to be planted out strongly, and your feet has to be parted a little bit. You want to move your presentation space so that your speech can be dynamic. You want to bring movement to your speech, and you want to speak with your hands so that you can use gestures and emphasize. We'll teach body language more extensively in the future, and why you need to be particular about your body language as you speak. And then finally today, we want another way you can determine people's emotional agenda. Another way you can determine people's emotional agenda is to listen to them. And it's something you do before you climb the stage. You listen to people, individuals, you listen to the audience, or you watch out for the feedback you're getting even on stage while you're speaking. So words, every time people speak, they leak. Words reveal our prejudice, our sentiments, our enthusiasm. Words reveal everything about us. So you want to be more listening so you can find out their hot buttons, their words, their charged buttons, their trigger words that you can take advantage of, incorporate it into your presentation, and make your words stronger. All right, so what advertisers, whenever a person speaks, he leaks. So that's what we're going to stop for today. I'm sure we got value. When we meet again tomorrow or some other time. We'll share a few ideas though, or we'll be breaking it down to look at other ways you can actually persuade people, either at an individual level or at a corporate level. I'm sure we'll be looking forward to that session. I thank you guys for your time. I know that I've spent some quality time. I'll take some questions now, but don't take persuasion, the topic of persuasion, lightly. Don't take it lightly. Trust me, it's a very important part of public speaking. And if you're into sales, persuasion is also a very important part. Tomorrow, before we start teaching on persuasion, I hope you understand the dynamics of developing rapport. We taught something about communication the other day. I said that communication is first connecting with people, then casting, then convincing. I'd like you to write this down. I've taught that several, but I want you to pay attention to this. Communication is first connection. You have to connect with the investor. You have to connect with the customer. You have to connect with the audience. You can't start speaking without connecting with the audience. All right. So I'm speaking today at an event, and what the first thing I did was to get them to celebrate themselves. You know, I realized that they love their pastor so much, and I got them to celebrate their pastor. You know, and I found ways to connect with them. And one of the ways I connected with the audience today was to use icebreakers. So I got them to look at themselves, you say something nice to themselves, walk around. Adding icebreakers into my presentation enabled me to anchor my point. So icebreakers, you know, finding a way to connect, finding a way to develop rapport, begin. That's where you don't start to convince unless you connect. So connection, connecting people, developing with people is important. And tomorrow we'll meet to be discussing dynamics of connection, how to connect people, how to develop rapport, how to develop rapport with somebody instantly. That you meet the person for the first time and the person likes you. You meet a woman for the first time, the person wants to go out with you. You have a conversation with a woman, you're interested in the woman, you have identified the emotional agenda, you've found a connecting point, and the person buys into whatever it is you're doing. So how do you do that like right now? How do you do it in such a way that your impression is left on her? That wherever she goes to, she remembers you. That every time you have meetings, you're giving people an experience of you. That's what speaking is all about. People don't just want to hear you, they want to experience you. And that should be your goal. So we'll discuss that tomorrow. So communication begins with connecting, then it goes on to casting. What does it mean to cast? To cast means to share words, the quality of your words, the content of your words, the logos. And then you don't want to share words, you want to share flowery words, colorful words with idioms, with quotes, with maxims, with proverbs that will get people with big words, borrowed English. You know, we said that the other time, so that the words, you know, make sense. You cast to paint pictures, become a painter of pictures. To paint pictures means to tell stories. And how do you tell stories? What are the 5 elements of good storytelling? 5 elements of good storytelling as a speaker. So if you're studying on it, how do you speak to people? How do you tell stories to a child and get a child to buy in? How do you tell stories to children and get them to buy in? How do you tell stories to adults and get them to buy into your concept? How do you tell a story about your product, about your service, about your business to a group of investors, to a panel of investors, to board of directors or board of trustees, and they buy in? That is the challenge of the speaker. You have to master this. It's not something you know, it's something you master over a period of time. I'm also mastering it. So casting is a vital part of speaking element before you now proceed to convincing. So it's connecting, and then it is casting, and then it's convincing. It's connecting, it's mirroring, it's relating, it's identifying, then casting, painting pictures, telling stories, using transformational words before you can now go ahead to convince you. That is what communication is about. And tomorrow we'll meet to look at specific ways you can use these dimensions. Now, I've told you that persuasion cuts across a broad spectrum. From you can use these ideas in sales, you can use these ideas in leadership, you can use these ideas in pastoring, in parenting, in whatever, in sales, in marketing. You can use a lot of these ideas to be shared with you. So don't just isolate the idea to public speaking. The influence is cut across a lot of things. I'm sure that what I've shared with you makes some sense and doesn't get a bit of feedback from you, and we'll call it a quit for today. I said I was going to do less than a few minutes, but I've done almost an hour. So let me hear from you. Let me just take a few questions from you. Please talk to me. We're done. Let me just get some comments, some questions. If you have questions you want to share with us, please do that now. Do you have any question you want to ask us? Ask me. Do that now. Comments, contribution.
Yeah, George. Hello.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Pastor Patrick, how you doing? You know, one of the things I notice about us as speakers and as communicators, as business people, is that you are either in this divide or that divide. You are either persuading or you are persuaded. You are either influencing or you're the influenced. You're either trying to market somebody or somebody's trying to market you. So life is a big marketplace of buying and selling. Always trying to buy and trying to buy. Even when you're buying, you want to buy cheap. You want to buy at a price that favors you. So we see persuasion in negotiation. We see the elements of persuasion in negotiating prices. You know, so okay, Patrick. So even in sales, in digital sales, in digital marketing, in copywriting, we see that. We see, I thought something on copywriting and a few things you notice about copywriting. If you're persuaded you want to study copywriting, you on your writing, how you can get people to follow through to buying to whatever it is you're doing. So I need to hear you guys talk to me. Whether you're a medical doctor, you're an entrepreneur, you're a pastor, persuasion is a must. Okay, I really enjoyed this session, but can you reiterate the 6 principles? Okay, I'll handle that. Let me have more questions. I'll handle that shortly. Can we have more questions? Any other question?
I want to. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I would love to ask orally because it's a bit much. I might not be able to type everything.
Okay, so you need to. Okay, is it best in Adima?
Yes, it's me, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. Good evening. Thank you so much for the great value you are giving us all the time.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes, my question is not from today's training, but they are related.
Okay.
2 days ago, you talked about different categories of speakers, people who anchor events, the inspirational speakers, the people who have built businesses and through their experience, they come up to write book and begin to share their experience and all different kinds of speakers and so. I know each and every one of them, you could make money from there.
Yeah, true.
But which one of them can you say command more authority? I have been trading in the area of want to go into public speaking as a life career. But more recent than not, I'm thinking of rather building business first, become an established entrepreneur, and now use everything I know and learn from the business to motivate at a higher level, like people like Grant Cardone, at that level of motivation. So what is your opinion, sir? Thank you.
My opinion is that you can do the two at the same time. You can be building a business and sharing your experience along the line. You can choose to be a motivational speaker, as in, I run businesses, I have businesses, I experience losses, I gain. I have multiple businesses. Most of you know that. I do multiple investments here and there, and I gain, I lose. So I know what it means to pay salaries. I know what it means to owe salaries. I know what it means to pay taxes. I know what it means to, so I can, from those that work with people, hire people, sack people, the joys of building a team, of failing with building that team. So I can really, from a practical point of view, not at the high level. So I'm actually growing and I'm learning. So you can do the two things at the same time. You can be sharing, journaling and documenting your experience, either on YouTube or in meetings that you go to. You don't have to be very successful to share a story, a part of what you're doing. So you can do the two at the same time, so that because that passion is there right now to speak, They invite you,
Yeah.
go give your talk. Give your talk.
Yeah.
All right. There's none of them that commands attention. But if you say that the public speaker or the inspirational speaker is bigger, what about talk show hosts like Trevor Noah, like talk show hosts like Oprah Winfrey? They don't
Yeah.
even share their story. They interview other people. They don't share their own story. They interview other people, and she's actually the richest black woman in the world. They are billionaires. So there's really none of them that commands. It's about how you engage, how you pursue it. So for my advice is keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing. The secret of greatness is discovery, development, deployment, and resulting in maximum living. The secret of greatness is discovery, development, deployment, resulting in maximum living. You have to discover yourself. What kind of speaker are you? What is your message? What is your voice? What are you supposed to say? That is where your attraction is. That's where your value is. Your value is in your message. Your value, so discovery determines differentiation. Discovery determines distinction. Discovery determines how different you turn out to be in speaking or in whatever business. So greatness does not begin with decision. Greatness begins with discovery. Decision comes after. The decision to commit. So you discover your purpose, your message, your vision, your assignment, what you're meant to do, what you're meant to talk about. You don't copy, you discover. And you find it out over the course of time. And that's what will determine how great you were. That's your pathway to greatness. So you are discovering your purpose, you're discovering your potential, okay? Who you are is different from what you are. Who you are is the greatness and the potential you're going to be. What you are is your current level, is your current evaluation, is your current what? How you are right now. And you have to be realistic about it. And so you begin to develop yourself with that ideal person. So you discover your potential, you discover your talent, your skills, your expertise. And then the next thing you also discover is that you discover people. You discover people that will help you. So you discover upline, sideline, and downlines. Upline being people who are your coaches, who are your role models, and who are your mentors. You have to identify them, and you have to find a way to connect with them through their books, their materials, or through one-on-one mentorship. So greatness begins with discovery, and then of people, of purpose, of potential, of principles that are aligned and are keen to your purpose. Because it's not every principles you would apply. There are certain principles that you apply that will not give you the same result. I apply the principles, you apply the same principles, you don't get the same result. Because principles are purpose dependent. Your purpose determines the kind of principles that you need to apply. Of course, we have true north principles, general principles that we all need to apply, to achieve certain levels of greatness. But for your own specific dynamic purpose, there are certain principles that you need to apply, certain principles because of the uniqueness of your purpose. So you see how this, you discover your principles, you discover your place. There are certain places you are in right now because success is geographical. You want to find out, am I in the right place? Am I growing now? Am I supposed to be developing myself here? And then you also discover your place of manifestation or your place of deployment. It is my place of unleashing myself. Okay, purpose and greatness is also discovering of the faces of your life. They say men are in sizes, men are in sizes. What did they say? Men are in sizes. Life is in faces. Men are in sizes. So life is in phases. So what phase are you right now? Are you in your phase of preparation, learning, subjecting, mentoring, apprenticeship, or are you in your phase of manifestation? You don't want to go out undone. Even as a speaker, you don't want to be announced when you should not be announced. So you understand the trends, you understand the faces. So all of this is very important. Then greatness is development. So when you have now identified the places, the people, the purpose, the potential, the principles, and the faces of your life, you now begin to grow. Attending classes like this, reading books, doing assignments. A person who is committed to doing assignment knows where he's going to. Subjecting yourself, subjecting your gifting, your talents to the scrutiny and the discipline of a mentor. It takes maturity to do that. Subjecting your talents, your ability to the scrutiny and the discipline of a mentor. Not everybody does that. Because when a person, when you allow yourself to be pruned, I get pruned, to screen you, you become better. Because the world is not looking for, he's trying. The world is looking for wow. And for you to have the wow factor, you need the place of a mentor. Professionals have coaches. Professionals, top professionals have coaches. So it's development, committing to reading, having a routine in reading, listening to audio, attending classes, taking down notes.
Yeah.
Then greatness is not just development, greatness is deployment. You go out there, you promote yourself, you brand yourself, you package yourself, and you go out there. You don't jump to that last part until you have done these other pieces. Else you sound like a caricature. So I see that you're doing great. I've followed you. I've seen what you're doing. Amazing. Be consistent at it, but make sure that you're doing it in line with these principles. You have discovered yourself, or you're discovering yourself, okay? And you're finding your distinction. You're sharpening yourself every now and then of course you're deploying yourself. You'll do well. You'll do well.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
God bless you. Thank you, sir. Any other question? Okay. So if there's no other question, I think somebody has sent a question. Let me see. If I can read it. What question could that be? How do you write a story for? Okay. What I'm going to do is that tomorrow I'm going to teach. I'm going to broaden our perspective, because you see, as speakers, we don't need to have a limited perspective. That's not the best way to go. Don't have a limited. Be very broad. Be very vast and vast. So I'm going to talk a little bit about storytelling, copywriting, I gave a topic in class about virtual versus actual presentation, the pros and the cons, and something of that nature. Virtual, so because the world is going virtual now, so public speaking is now virtual. So do we understand the dynamics of virtual presentation, like what we're doing now through Zoom and through Facebook Live? And how do we go about it? How do we get people to, build a community, build an ecosystem, through these virtual presentations? So we're going to look at those dynamics little, introduce that into. That's why we teach the public speaker and the internet in our training, and I'm sure that we'll look at that from that question asked. So thank you guys for coming and joining us today. I've given us an assignment. If you're in the WhatsApp group, the Podium Dynamics Academy WhatsApp group, I would love you to do this. I gave you some assignments that you should pick up on any topic on faith, on power, on family, finance, 4 or 5 topics, and then make sure that you choke the 5 minutes or 7 minutes presentation, either visual or audio, with idioms, some idioms, quotes, and make sure it's enriching. And let's hear from you. If you don't do visuals, do a voice note and listen to it and evaluate it. The more you do it, the better you can become. If you're not in the group, that means that you're not a registered student. If you're a registered student, you're either in the Podium Dynamics Academy or you are in the Coach B Accountability Program. And for those of us who are in the Coach B Accountability Program, trust me, this year has been a great year for me because I'm following through on my goals. There will never be a best time to do everything. So I'm following through on my goals. I'm hitting my target, my financial targets, my personal development target, my family targets. Okay, so Joy Brown, if you have my WhatsApp number, chat up with me. I'll tell you what to do to be part of it. I'm meeting my targets on a regular basis. And trust me, this year is fantastic. I don't know about you. Of course, there have been challenges, lots of challenges, but I'm meeting my goals. So I want you to meet your goals. Don't let this year come and go without you doing something spectacular in life. That's why we did the media goal evaluation workshop, where we help people to look at their goals again, re-strategize, retool themselves for the future. I don't know if you're part of it. So maybe tomorrow I'm in Eket right now doing some facilitations for teaching organizations. Tomorrow I'll continue this class, and I don't want you to miss it. I might finish by 9, so I'll start by 9 o'clock tomorrow, and then we'll take you through some other things and help you grow and build yourself. Thank you guys for coming. I'm sure we don't have any more conversation. Thank you, Dr. Oko and Yebet, Thank you, Besson. Thank you, Itoro, fantastic woman. Thank you, Precious. Oh, Precious, Tenacious, Precious, Patrick, Mrs. Chubuso, Joy Brown, chatted with me, Isaac Valley, Faith. God bless you. Very good. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great evening. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you.
Good night, sir.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.